Friends, thank you for being here today. What if I told you that the invisible architecture holding up American financial dominance just cracked? Not slowly, not theoretically. This week, in real time, while the media celebrates gold hitting record highs as just another commodity rally, something far more structural is unfolding beneath the surface. The East isn't buying gold to make money, they're buying it to replace us. Let me give you a number: 36,344 tons. For the first time since 1996, global central banks now hold more physical gold reserves than US Treasury bonds, more gold than American debt. Think about what that means. The asset that has backed the entire US empire for half a century, our Treasury bonds, our promise to pay, has just been mathematically superseded by the one asset designed to end it. This is what I call a mathematical flippening, and it represents the largest structural shift in global finance since Bretton Woods collapsed in 1971. But here's the number that should keep you awake at night: $4.2 trillion. That's the notional value of non-commercial gold holdings that has surged in the past 18 months, eclipsing the GDP of Japan, Germany, and the UK combined. We're not talking about jewelry or industrial demand. We're talking about sovereign vaults being stuffed with physical metal at a pace that defies every historical precedent. This is a coordinated accumulation, and it has a name: the Gold Corridor. This is not a market trend, friends. This is a structural fault line, a mathematical endgame, and November 29th, 2025 will be remembered as the day the starting gun fired. Now, to understand why this week matters, we need to go back to the moment trust died. February 26, 2022. The United States, along with its allies, froze $300 billion in Russian foreign exchange reserves overnight. With the stroke of a pen, Russia's dollars sitting in Western banks were no longer theirs. They were hostages. And every finance minister, every central banker from Beijing to Brasilia to Riyadh watched and learned a single brutal lesson. If your reserves are in dollars, they are not your reserves. They are our permission. That freeze was the Genesis event. It triggered what intelligence analysts are now calling the most frantic construction of parallel financial infrastructure since World War II. The goal? Sovereign custody, the ability to trade, to settle, to store wealth outside the reach of Washington's sanctions regime. And the foundation of that new system isn't a digital currency or a blockchain promise. It's the oldest form of money humanity has ever known: physical gold. But here's where it gets technical, and this is the big secret of the entire system that almost no one is explaining. In June 2019, something called Basel III, the Global Banking Rulebook, was quietly amended. Gold was reclassified as a Tier 1 asset. Now, if you're not a banker, that phrase means nothing to you, so let me translate it using simple logic. Think of a bank's balance sheet like a house. To keep that house standing, regulators require the bank to hold certain safe assets in the foundation, things that won't collapse in a crisis. For decades, only two things qualified: cash and US Treasury bonds. Gold was considered risky. Banks that held gold had to set aside extra cash to insure against it, treating it like a speculative bet. It was expensive to own. Basel III flipped that. Gold is now risk-weighted at 0%. Legally, it is identical to cash. A bank can hold a ton of gold in its vault and count it the same as holding a ton of dollars for regulatory purposes. No penalty, no extra capital requirement. This wasn't a tweak, friends. This was a starting gun. It gave every major bank on earth legal permission to dump US debt and load up on gold without breaking a single rule. And they did. Central banks bought a record 1,180 tons of gold in 2024 alone. But here's the twist: unreported buying, the purchases that don't show up in official statistics, is estimated to be double that. The whales are hiding their tracks. Why? Because they don't want the West to see the vault doors closing until it's too late. This leads us to the system's most crucial secret, which we will explore in just a moment. But first, you need to understand the mechanics of what's being built. The Gold Corridor is not a metaphor. It is a physical network of interconnected vaults spanning Shanghai, Dubai, Moscow, and as of this week, Riyadh. These vaults are linked by a digital settlement layer, what insiders call atomic settlement, that allows nations to clear trade balances instantly using blockchain technology backed by physical metal. No SWIFT, no correspondent banks, no dollar intermediary. You ship oil to China. China credits your vault in Dubai with gold-backed digital tokens. You withdraw the physical metal or use those tokens to buy machinery from Russia. The transaction is instant, final, and outside the reach of Western sanctions. The mainstream media calls this a commodity bubble. They say gold is up because of inflation fears or geopolitical tension. They're missing the story entirely. This is a collateral coup. For 50 years, the world bought US Treasury bonds because they were the only safe asset, the only thing you could use as high-quality collateral to backstop the global banking system. As of this week, the East has proven they don't need our debt anymore. Gold is the new foundation. And when gold replaces treasuries as the world's collateral, the US empire doesn't just fade, it defaults. Let me show you the canaries dying in the coal mine. First, the Shanghai Gold Exchange is now trading at a consistent premium to London and New York. Physical gold in the East costs more than paper gold in the West. That's not speculation. That's proof of a one-way flow. The metal is draining from our vaults to theirs, and the price divergence is the forensic evidence. Second, a $200 million mandate was just awarded to a consortium called Smart Bridge to develop what they're calling Bridge Gold, a fully reserved digital asset backed by Swiss and Singapore vaults. This isn't a pilot program, friends. This is a corporate reality with budgets, timelines, and infrastructure. The technology is live. The vaults are being filled. The system is operational. And third, the most important canary of all, Saudi Arabia. On November 29th, the Saudis formally integrated their gold vault into the Shanghai Gold Exchange international network. Think about what that means. For half a century, the entire global economy ran on a simple deal. Saudi Arabia sells oil in dollars, and those dollars come back to the US to buy treasury bonds. It's called the petrodollar system, and it's the scaffolding holding up American dominance. That scaffolding just snapped. Saudi oil can now be sold directly for gold-backed yuan. No dollars, no treasuries, no New York banks. The transaction happens in Shanghai, clears through the Gold Corridor, and settles in physical metal sitting in a vault that the United States cannot sanction, cannot freeze, and cannot touch. The petrodollar isn't dying, friends. It's already dead. The funeral just hasn't been televised yet. Now, I can hear the objection forming in your mind. If this is so catastrophic, why isn't it the top story on every news channel? Why isn't the stock market in free fall? The answer is simple: normalcy bias. Human beings are hardwired to believe tomorrow will look like yesterday. We assume the system that has worked our entire lives will keep working forever. We see the cracks, but we rationalize them. We tell ourselves it's just noise, just volatility, just a temporary disruption. But here's the trap the Fed is walking into. And this is where the liquidity crisis meets the sovereign crisis in a doom loop with no exit. If the Federal Reserve raises interest rates to defend the dollar, to make Treasury bonds attractive again, they trigger a cascade of bank insolvencies here at home. We saw the preview in March 2023 when Silicon Valley Bank imploded. Higher rates mean the bonds sitting on bank balance sheets lose value. Mark-to-market losses become marked to extinction. The entire regional banking system craters. But if the Fed prints money to save those banks, to inject liquidity and prevent collapse, gold accelerates even faster. It's the ultimate doom loop. Printing devalues the dollar. A weaker dollar makes gold more attractive. More gold buying drains physical metal from Western vaults. Less metal in our vaults means less collateral backing our system. The Fed is trapped between insolvency and hyperinflation, and the gold corridor is tightening the noose with every ton that moves east. Here's the encirclement, friends, and I want you to see it clearly. Stocks, liquidity is draining. The Fed has pulled back from quantitative easing, and foreign central banks are selling treasuries to buy gold. That's less money flowing into risk assets. Bonds yields are spiking because demand is collapsing. When China and Japan stop rolling over their treasury holdings, who fills the gap? The Fed has to print, which triggers the doom loop I just described. Cash. Inflation is eroding it in real time. You're losing 5, 6, 7% purchasing power per year while your savings account pays you too. And real estate, priced in gold, your home has crashed 40% since 2020. You feel rich because the nominal price went up, but you're poorer. That's the money illusion at work. The liquidity tide is going out, and we are about to find out who is swimming naked. Now, let me bring this into sharp focus with what I call the convergence, the trifecta of forces hitting simultaneously, each one catastrophic on its own, but together they form a singular inevitability. Force number one, geopolitical secession. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, and Ethiopia, represent a combined GDP that now exceeds the G7. They are not a fringe coalition anymore, friends. They are the majority of humanity, and they are formally opting out of the dollar system. Reports suggest that up to 185 nations have either joined or are integrating with the new BRICS payment infrastructure. This is not a rebellion. This is a divorce. Force number two, monetary debasement. The United States is adding $1 trillion to its national debt every 100 days. Every 100 days. That is not a budgeting problem. That is a mathematical endgame. Treasury bonds are becoming mathematically uninvestable. Why would you lend money to a government that is accelerating toward insolvency? The only buyer left is the Federal Reserve itself, which means printing money to buy our own debt. That is monetization. That is the final stage. Force number three, physical scarcity. Here's the secret that the paper gold market doesn't want you to understand. The COMEX in New York and the LBMA in London, the two dominant gold exchanges in the West, operate on a fractional reserve system. For every ounce of physical gold sitting in their vaults, there are an estimated 100 ounces of paper claims. Futures contracts, ETFs, derivatives, it's the same alchemy that caused the 2008 financial crisis, but this time it's with gold. The gold corridor is calling that bluff. Eastern central banks are demanding physical delivery. They are draining the vaults. And when the West runs out of metal to deliver, the paper price and the physical price will decouple violently, what the insiders call the vacuum. This is not three separate problems, friends. This is three fault lines converging into a single earthquake. And the psychological trap that most people are falling into is what I call the nominal illusion. You look at your portfolio and you see numbers going up. Your 401k says you have $500,000. Your house is worth $800,000. You feel wealthy, but here's the reality. Priced in gold, your net worth has collapsed. In 2020, 1 ounce of gold cost $1,800. Today, it costs over $4,000. That means everything you own, denominated in dollars, has lost more than half its value relative to the one asset that central banks are hoarding. You are becoming a millionaire on paper, but poorer at the grocery store. That is the illusion. You are holding political promises while the world's power brokers are holding sovereign collateral. So what does this mean for you? What is the action step here? Because I am not interested in scaring you, friends. I am interested in preparing you. The binary choice in front of you is this. Do you want to own assets or do you want to own claims on assets? Do you want to hold political promises, fiat currency, treasury bonds, even stock certificates that can be frozen, inflated away, or legislated into irrelevance? Or do you want to hold sovereign collateral, physical gold and silver that sits outside the banking system, cannot be hacked, cannot be sanctioned, and has been recognized as money for 5,000 years? Gold is now a tier 1 asset under Basel III. That means the world's largest banks legally treat it as equivalent to cash. It is zero risk weighted. It is high quality liquid collateral. You are not speculating on gold, friends. You are stepping out of the line of fire. You are becoming your own central bank. This is not about getting rich. This is about not getting poor. There is a difference, and that difference is everything in the world we are entering. The gold corridor is not a trade, it is a transformation. It is the East telling the West, we no longer need your debt, your banks, or your permission. And when that message fully sinks in, when the market realizes that the foundation of the dollar system has been replaced, the repricing will be biblical. I want to leave you with one final thought, and this is where the somber reality meets the urgent action. You are living through the unwinding of a 70-year empire. The Bretton Woods system gave us dollar dominance. The petrodollar deal with Saudi Arabia locked it in. But empires do not last forever, and the architecture always crumbles from the foundation up. The foundation right now is collateral, and the collateral is shifting from treasuries to gold. It is happening in vaults you cannot see, in transactions that are not reported, in meetings where the media is not invited. By the time this story is on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, it will be too late. The metal will be gone. The corridor will be operational. And the dollar will be a regional currency, not a global reserve. History favors the prepared, friends, and the window for preparation is closing not in years, not in months, right now. The gold corridor is not a future threat, it is a present reality. The question is not whether the old system will collapse. The question is whether you will be holding paper or metal when it does. Thank you for being here today. I know this is heavy. I know it challenges everything we were taught about money and safety and wealth. But the truth does not care about our comfort. The truth simply is. And the truth right now is that the largest wealth transfer in human history is underway. It is transferring from those who hold promises to those who hold assets, from those who trust the system to those who understand its fragility. Choose wisely, act accordingly. And remember, in the coming storm, the only real insurance is the asset that has survived every previous storm, not because it is perfect, but because it is real.